Hello, Adam. Hello, Dawn. Really not sure how much of an update I can give you. I was just checking up on rumors that Iranian propaganda source Jadal is claiming that Rouhani was arrested, which is interesting. Uh, my guess is the United States is actually going to strike soon. I don't think that President um, Trump can credibly get away with not doing anything. Hello, Lance. Let me drop the link in case anybody wants to join. Um, I am still convinced that the regime is dead man walking already. Pretty much main pieces on the chessboard right now. Well, internet has been down for 8 days now, I think. What was the exact? Let me see what it said. 8 full days. Yep. So, and apparently Starlink is the only real way out. I don't know how Iran is going to try to get back to, like, the regime is going to try to get back to normal after this. The New York Times is confirming over 2,000 people dead. CBS is apparently suggesting 6,000 dead. The protests look like they, you could turn that off. Clicks in the sound. Well, I may have actually been clicking on things, but yeah, I mean, brutal repression. There are rumors that foreign militias have been brought in to Lance, my man.
How's it going, Jacob?
How are you?
Just getting my Iran update with my Iranian refugee Jewish friend.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I I I don't know how the regime is gonna bounce back from this. Um, so there are little crackling sounds. Let me see if. Oops, what did I do? Where did he go? There he is. Um, hopefully this is a little bit better. Let me know if it's still bad. I'm not sure if there's anything I can do, but
Sounds a little better now.
okay. So I don't know. I don't know what the United States is going to do. I don't think Israel is going to do anything other than follow the United States lead. To my a little bit surprise, the Arab states have kind of sort of rallied around Iran's Islamic regime. I think it's complex. The I don't. I mean, I can't tell you I know what's going to happen. What I suspect is lots more people are going to die before this is over. But I don't see the Islamic regime recovering from this. I don't see how they're going to recover. I don't know how they reopen the internet and not be in the same place they were 8 days ago when they turned off the internet and slaughtered a bunch of people. And I mean, I saw a clip where somebody on Piers Morgan said um, the number of dead may be more than Gaza. I think by the time this is over, the number of dead is going to be larger than Gaza. I right now, I think before this is over, we're looking at I mean, it would take a miracle for the number of dead to be below six figures, because if Iran is bringing people in, foreign fighters in, which that's the claims that are being made, there are Shiite militias apparently coming in from Iraq. Those people will kill and die, and they will continue to kill until they die. Frankly, I mean, if that is going on and the United States can strike and kill a bunch of Iraqis in Iran, that'll be interesting. I don't know what Trump's options are. I don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. Was it 2 days ago? Mm-hmm. When they cleared the airspace, they had the birds up in the air. They were ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
And then I was really interested when the Saudis said, "Hey, we're not going to open up our airspace," which would have been one of the places. So as soon as that came, I thought that was interesting. And so, but the one thing, so I can't remember what his handle is. I'll have to go back and search and figure it out. But anyway, I like him. He ex-military guy or whatever. He's not this kind of neocon sort of person. But anyway, he's like, hey, here's the deal. They were watching. They know exactly what the defense posture is.
I heard people saying stuff like that, like, oh, well, you know, that was a great scare for Iran, and possibly all of the, you know, all of the people who were supposed to be hidden, right? So that, I mean, there are plenty of targets the United States could hit, and frankly, Israel would hit if the United States gave the go ahead. And yeah, all of those people must have run to their safe houses, and that's information I'm guessing Mossad and CIA have now.
Yeah, and it was a real. So basically, it was a real thing. So they were gassed up, loaded up in the air. It wasn't just trying to see what they would do.
Yeah.
But the benefit is now they were watching this stuff. I think one of the things that I'm interested about is that with how efficient Mossad was taking out all sorts of other sorts of leadership.
Yeah.
To me, I'm almost, and maybe you could speak to this, I would almost think that they would kind of know where the people you would want to take out are.
So one thing that I saw videos happening in Iran even before the internet blackout, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Mossad, was people were going around with spray paint to homes of IRGC leaders and very clearly marking, okay, that apartment belongs to this guy. This is his name. That's his rank. And that's where he lives. That takes intelligence. That takes, you know, specific knowing the details. How did you get those details? How do you know who lives where, right? And then having operatives on the ground making that very clear to the protesters, and that's the type of thing. So when people say what's the United States going to do, my first question is, well, what would actually help? If the internet can be brought back up, that would help. And I think they're trying to do that with Starlink as much as possible, but from what I see, that's not quite doing it. And Iran is apparently using Russian signal jammers to.
That's the key. So one of the things, and Elon even posted this or whatever, they're working on how to get around that. But those are the things you can try. So if things you could do right now is like, okay, how do we take out whatever that technology is? Take that out, so you can get the internet back up, right?
Right. Yeah, that's something they could do if there are foreign militias. If we could attack those foreign militias, I don't know how possible that is. Command and control for the IRGC. Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince, had a news a press conference this morning, and he was calling on various nations, especially Europe, to specifically name IRGC commanders as terrorists, etc., and freeze their assets. But I mean, just to see what they're saying, I went to the Young Turks and I listened a little bit to what they were saying, and their entire thing is, this is a foreign war and we're gonna get embroiled in a foreign conflict, and it's like, that's not even on the table. I don't think. Right. Well, I don't think that's on the table at all.
I don't think that the isolationist types in general know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, this. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of somebody who never thought they would be on the 10-yard line in American football, who has 0 plays for being on the 10-yard line because they never imagined that was a possibility. And the ball is just so far away from anything they even considered. They just don't know what to say. There's no plays being called. There's no, because it's like, I mean, I never thought I would say this. October 7th, the story people are going to be telling about October 7th, I think in 10, 20 years, the people who are opposed to Israel, etc., what they are going to say, Israel did it. Like, this was completely, like, Hamas is going to completely disavow, like, all the people who were so pro-Hamas, they're like going to be talking about October 7th being an Israeli operation, that because the results have been so miraculously the opposite of anything. I remember the news coming in on October 7th, 2023. And it was devastating. And obviously, I mean, thousands of people lost their lives. It was devastating. It was horrible. But at this point, the results have been at such a level that the anti-Semites are going to be, Netanyahu planned October 7th. This was his
Oh,
brilliance.
they're already saying stuff like they already say stuff like that.
Yeah. Like this was a Israeli plan start to finish, and yeah, like which it's a weird position to be in. I have no idea who Jordan Reza Georgiani is, Young God.
Yeah, so I don't think if it were as easy as all they had to do was do a certain strikes and then the regime change would basically you would embolden the people to be able to, take it over, they would do that. I don't know that it's that easy. I don't know if taking out Khamenei would work or not, right?
And he's 86.
Right. And then you're creating it's
Like
it's
killing an 86-year-old Shiite Muslim is just giving him the martyr's death that he wishes for.
right. And like you say, that's like your analogy that's on the 10-yard line. They are in their last gasps.
Yeah.
They can kill a lot of people on the way out if they want. But this
Looks like they are.
It is over. And so it is complex. I found it interesting. I haven't heard anybody intelligently talk about this. It was interesting that there seemed to be a late change of the Arab states to want to put a pause on what they were going to do. And I thought that's interesting. And I don't think you just said, so this is curious. I think they all understand that the regime change is coming there. There's no there's no way that it's a matter. It's not if, but when at this point would seem to be what the Middle East, and I think what these fair observers are talking about. I don't think it's, but again, I don't think it's people were hopeful it would happen like last week, right? That he was going to flee to Moscow like Assad. But then, the thing is like, Assad doesn't want to be an 86-year-old martyr for the cause. A lot of those guys there probably be just fine to be martyrs instead of living in Moscow with Putin. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think Khamenei at this point, at 86 years of age, like I think he would love a martyr's death.
Yeah. Now, if I'm a great grandson who's like 29, I might have a different opinion about whether I want to die the martyr's death or not. When I got access to all the money, you know what I mean?
Well, his young, I don't know exactly. His son wants to be the next Ayatollah. I was thinking, like, who would I take out if I were Trump? The members of the Guardian Council.
Isn't there a job for Mossad with United States help, or can they not get in there?
The Guardian Council I don't even know how many members the Guardian Council has. 12 members. Yeah, there's 12 members, and they're
Young God assassination is illegal.
Assassination is illegal. Oh no. Well,
It's only,
couldn't possibly have something illegal happen in the world. That's never happened before. Like, the 12 members of the Guardian Council, especially if you could take all of them out, that might be your best bet.
and somebody was basically referring to that, which is one advantage to I don't know how true this is. Basically, their thought is they kind of know where those guys are dispersed, or where they kind of know where they're at, right, to some extent. And if they think
Yes.
something's coming, like you're talking safe houses, movements, if you kind of figure out where they're at, I kind of, I kind of thought it was. Did you see the reports about how they took Maduro? And I guess there was some fairly sophisticated, how they jammed technologies, took things down in new ways, and then they had some of this, whether it's some sort of pulse or something, that they were able to basically immobilize like 100 guys, just like that. That to me sounded like BS, like a total fake account. I did not believe it for the slightest.
I could
But-
believe there was an EMP that did their electronics in.
Well, and then some sort of weapon that was sonic weapon that was used against all the guards, just basically in a compound, and they were talking about like their eardrums they were laying on the ground, they were totally incapacitated, and some sort of whether that would be something like that. I thought, but then multiple reliable sources are like, yeah, well, there's stuff like that that's available now, right?
Mm.
They have these, and this is the wrong term. I'm just using a term loosely, like some of these subsonic weapons. You think about that just in terms of missiles, but there are things they're figuring out with this stuff, because there should have been a big shootout to get Maduro out, and there wasn't.
Well, I mean, you saw the 30 Cuban guards who died, and I mean,
Were
what
those
I
little
heard-
boxes? It looked like they were bringing little boxes off.
Apparently,
like
they were cremated before they were repatriated. Yeah.
So, why do you cremate? Like, holy cow! Like, if there was something, I don't know. It's
Cuba
Is
is just cheap
Catholics
enough.
don't cremate.
What?
Catholics don't cremate. They're
Yeah,
Catholics.
but I don't think Castro is a very religious Catholic. I think he's perfectly willing to save some money on some funerals to buy himself another Rolex.
So so when you think about those sorts of things, and those are things only the United States has, they are not
Yeah.
sharing that with their partners. That's stuff that's you
Yeah.
keep in house. If you can, and basically Iran's air defenses and all that other sort of stuff. When you think about, I think there are some things that they could shut some things on down. I think they could get on ground and do some things with some insert forces. You partner up with Mossad. I don't know. I think you could get at those IRGC leaders.
Well, look, one thing Israel has, is tens of thousands of Persians who speak fluent Farsi. And one of the most idiotic things that Iran did was antagonize the Jewish population in Iran. Because, a lot of, I have family in Israel, many of whom still speak Farsi. And so
Farsi that could pass if they were in Iran.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
not even a question. Yeah. And like they look and pass for Persians enough that it wouldn't even be a question, but the thing is, I don't know how many boots on the ground Israel has. It can't possibly be the numbers that Iran insists Israel has, because if there were that many Israeli, like they almost claim there's more of a Mossad presence in Iran than
Actual Mossad members.
than IRGC members.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yes, they look and pass for Persians because they are. Yes,
Right.
Many of them were born in Iran and learned Farsi
And
as
that's-
their first language.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
Once you have the right, I know I'm using the wrong term, but just
And
accent,
look,
dialect, and
a lot of them, like the maps. So when Google came out with the maps of Tehran, right? At first, my dad was like, "How is Iran allowing these detailed maps to be like put on the internet?" Right? And then he thought about it for a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, like I mean, I could draw you these." He could draw a bunch of these maps. He was living in Iran, right? And so Israel has them, and the United States has them. So what's like keeping them off the internet doing for anybody? You know? It's funny. Like I every once in a while I check on Google the synagogue I used to go to as a little kid, and it's there with pictures and photos and videos, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it appeared to be people were hopeful that last week when something had happened. I think you would certainly hope something would happen sometime in the near future, because windows of opportunity open up and then they close.
See, the thing is, I don't know how Iran goes back to look. The currency is dead. And these past 8 days have not been helping the Iranian economy any. And when are they going to turn the internet back on? And when they turn the internet back on, how is the situation not going to be worse for the regime than it was when they shut it off?
Yeah, people know, but then they'll know, right? They'll be like, they'll find out this happened here, this happened there. And it just, at the end of the day, those people were in the streets knowing many people were going to die and they didn't care.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were brave enough to say, we're out. Like, we know the risk. Of course, you don't want to die. Yeah. But at some point, you get to a point to where you're like, okay, we're going to do this because of enough of us to do this, we can make sure we keep the pressure on, and you have to be willing to know that I may die, but I'm going to do this because it's the thing that has to happen for my family, for my country,
Patrick Bet-David said, the type of repression that's going on in Iran couldn't happen in a country with a Second Amendment. Like, you could never do that here in the United States.
Right.
Many people just cannot believe, like, I mean, I'm waiting for confirmation, but the New York Times is saying over 2,000 dead. Right?
I mean, just
can you imagine if 2,000 protesters were murdered in the United States?
Yeah, they're getting mad at over a gal who tried to run over an ICE agent.
Yeah.
By the way, that's failing. They so want this. They so desperately want a big blow up and people in the streets all over the country and everything else. And they're not having ICE problems in places where they're not have their left-wing networks trying to fight back, but it's just not popping off like they want to. I should, never mind.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's part of the reason, there was one reason of it is, but
I'm not going to say who, but I have a certain friend in Minneapolis I've been texting with, and I sent him a text last night. Which revolution do you think is going to be more successful, Minnesota or Iran?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I mean, just look at the BLM riots that happened.
Well, and so that dynamic was so much different. The dynamic was so much different because that brought in, forget what the leadership, the scam that it was. that did bring in a lot more black people into it, right? However, I'm just telling you, the inner cities do not care. The inner cities want ICE to get rid of these people. So you are not going to have African Americans that are going to be. They want ICE to get rid of these illegals. So that's a dynamic. The only people who want to do this crazy immigration thing are rich white liberals.
So
Seriously, the only people who really care about this are rich white liberals.
this tweet and the follow-up to it just made my blood boil. Let me pull it up so that people actually believe me.
Because the polling actually says,
Yeah.
if you do a broad base, they want more deportations, not less.
So Ken Martin
Oh,
is the
gosh.
chair of the DNC.
Right.
He made a video. I mean, he made a tweet comparing the United States with Iran, and people reacted as you would expect. And this was his response, doubling down. This man is the chair of the Democratic National Committee.
Yep, rich white liberals.
If comparing the US to Iran makes you angry, ask why. Oh, I can tell you why. I can tell you why. Mr. Ken Martin, you won't like my answer. Killing protesters, crushing dissent, kidnapping and disappearing legal citizens, ignoring courts, threatening critics, terrorizing communities. That's authoritarian behavior anywhere. If you're rushing to defend it, maybe the problem isn't the comparison. Trump keeps pushing it, Americans aren't buying it, and Minneapolis won't be silent. F you.
Right.
F you.
But
You effing
boomer
F.
liberals are big mad, Jacob. Come on.
Yeah. And one of the things is that in America, when we have a riot, we can economically recover because there's enough institutional trust that investors are willing to invest in rebuilding infrastructure and such. The problem with Iran is that once it collapses, there's going to be a point of no return, in my view, because one of the laws of economics that I've heard is the idea that, like, once you're so shitty of an economic situation, you become so unstable that you can't recover because of lack of investment confidence.
Well, but actually, if you look at the places where those George Floyd riots happened, which is where the black people have to live, people do not come back. The Targets don't come back. The gas stations they don't come back because it's a bad investment, because it's just going to keep doing it. So I would agree with you largely.
Look, I think a lot of people have moved out of Minnesota.
Well, here's the thing. Like, so I went to school in St. Paul, right between Minneapolis and St. Paul on the river. And it's always been left wing. But you get outside of Minneapolis and they're not as insane as what's going on in what's going on there. But Minneapolis itself is just, well, again, where they shipped in all these Somalis. And the reason why Republicans can't win in Minnesota is it's close enough. It's a Somali vote. So there was these high-rise apartment complexes that used to be where a lot of college students, there's lots of colleges in that area, actually. Yeah. And so, there are tons of colleges. And then there's the University of Minnesota that's right there close to that. So they shipped in all these Somalis in there. They took over all these high-rise apartments and everything else, right? And the reason that the Somali thing is a big scam. It is a scam by Minnesota politicians that basically allow them to win these elections, right? Yeah. They've taken over those areas. But those used to be great areas I'm old enough, I had college friends, so I would go to those high-rise apartment complexes where they're staying now. It's totally overrun by Somalis. It's only Somalis rent those buildings anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then you drop 300,000 Somalis into a city, and waltz and fry. I mean, the actual politicians that come out of the stupidity of that full on progressive, like fully actualized, like Portland or things like that, like it's insane.
So I had people say to me, if the fraud is this bad in Minnesota, how much worse is it in California? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. California has been functioning for many years. And I analogized it to, when the Europeans came to the New World and spread their city dwelling bacteria and viruses among the native populations who just did not have antibodies for all of these diseases, right? So California is so much more disease infested with scams and scammers that it has a sort of immune system that I don't think Minnesota had. And that's why Minnesota has become like such a festering wound.
Well, and it was, and so you have the European migration there. You had the Democrat socialists. Like there also is a very left wing sort of bent to what Minnesota was about. But Minneapolis itself has always kind of been even in the 90s, was on the forefront of left wing thinking. Minneapolis itself, and Ilhan Omar is she's a fraudster. She's a trickster. She's getting elected because I told you they took over basically that where her congressional district is. They figured out this fraud scam. They knew they were not going to be investigated by anyone in the Minnesota government, right? Because there's no way that they were going to lose control, and they have control of those things. Keith Ellison is a scammer and a fraudster on massive proportions. Tim Walz is a he's just a dimwit, but you elect the dimwit because the dimwit will allow all the cheating and stealing to continue to go on. He's the perfect foible, right? Yeah. And so Minneapolis is just it's a hellhole. It is. So, which really stinks because, again, just get outside of it. I mean, it is a other than the winters, which truly are horrendous. It is it's just a fantastic state, just a gorgeous state, fantastic state, and a really cool city. It's just kind of a shame of what's happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, but I came to the United States and I recognized what a huge difference there was between a shithole country and living in the United States. And I was so grateful to not be living in a shithole that I very much wanted to know, okay, what is the difference? What makes the difference? Why is life so much better here, right? And it's just so infuriating seeing people who've never visited a shithole cannot even imagine what living in a shithole is like, right? There is a level of naivete you have to compare living in Minnesota, living in the United States to living in Iran, right? That is just like, oh my God, you are going to create Iran here in the United States, and you cannot believe how bad that is. And that's why you have zero fear of it.
I mean,
Well, and
look at Zoran Mamdani, right? Rich guy, doesn't know what
From
he's talking about.
Uganda. So
yeah,
this is
exactly.
the thing. Zoran Mamdani has lived in Uganda. He has lived in Egypt. He knows what shitholes are like. And he expects to be part of the elites of the shithole. And he's fine with that. He likes how the economy in Uganda works, where he gets to have the benefits of basically being a pre-Civil War plantation owner. That's why he had his wedding in Uganda. He is wants to go back to a time when there were slaves, and he wants to be the slave owner, which is amazing to me.
Well, and I think one of the big shifts about whatever this crazy, they were importing all the, it's for election purposes, but they're importing all these people and everything else they were doing. But like that Somali population, they have no interest in assimilating into the United States. They have no interest in assimilation, right?
Well,
when you think about though the great immigration waves of the, really, if you start thinking about the 20th century, there was such a massive push for the first generation. They wanted their children to assimilate. They wanted them, like where you talk, like you talk about like just this, and that's why you started sounding the alarm earlier, but it was this point is like, they wanted to be part of this American experience. Like they wanted to come into the social contract and the American dream, and they wanted to be a part of it. Right. And so, opposed to just solely sticking into your own cultural, thing that I think that's interesting. And what we're seeing right now is there's, I've
actually seen from within the Somali community in Minnesota a sort of pushback against there was a video going around YouTube of a woman speaking in Somali and being like, F Ilhan Omar, I don't owe her anything. Who is she, and why does she think she gets to own our votes? Ilhan Omar's parents they escaped, like she got refugee status in the United States from the government of her own parents, right? So it's like if I, as somebody who escaped Iran, and I have, right, were actually someone whose father was part of the leadership of Iran. Well, that's her situation, right? And there are definitely Somalis in the United States who are like, oh no. I don't want to live in Somalia. That's why I live here. And I don't want to.
Here's where I'll believe that. There absolutely are.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, get rid of let's get past the Minnesota situation. Right?
Yeah.
Somalis across this country, I guarantee that's the case. But the thing is, if more of them believe that, there's no way she could get elected and they wouldn't have the Somali stronghold voting in this huge block in those areas where they have control. So if that were really true, Jacob, and most of them felt that way, then she wouldn't win the election. This other guy who was the mayoral contact. The point is like there's it's provable by voting data, right?
Oh, there's definitely, yeah. I just I just think the Democrats imagine that this is going to work a lot better, and they've imagined it works a lot better here in California as well, because they think they have the Hispanic vote locked up, and they don't. They really don't.
Well,
They
and
just think they do.
here's the other thing. Accounts I follow, whatever. Black community they have, again, just Black Americans are tired of getting taken advantage of. They have no sympathy for Somali refugees scamming the system out of the government and everything else. It's like, no, you guys know, they have no interest in that.
Yeah.
So again, this is just the rich white liberals, are those people who believe the religion that support this kind of crap. And I listen, this gal who got her kids taken away from her, and her lesbian girlfriend were part of these left-wing watch groups and are there trying to be on the front lines in Minnesota and everything else. In some ways, we all need to have our own personal integrity, but in the same way where if you guys, there's this Jody Hildebrandt, who, I don't know if you heard about her. There's this crazy story out of Utah where she was this therapist, and just, it's awful stories, but people are susceptible to things, so I look at that poor woman who got herself shot. She's out there thinking, because of social media, and I'm sticking up to the man, and she's part of it. She had no idea that she was effing around with a vehicle. Play stupid games, you get stupid prizes,
Yeah.
And so when I think about her, I have a lot of empathy for her, just in terms of, Ken Martin stupid. So here we have the head of the DNC whipping up crap that is total bullshit and a lie.
And Walz. Walz is 100%
responsible for these poor. You tell me to get in the streets and fight. Okay, here I come. I am, and I do something stupid with my car, and I end up getting shot.
Yeah. No, I see it all the time here in Los Angeles.
They do not care about those people.
Yeah, I see it all the time here in Los Angeles. People who think, oh, well, I'm just following the intelligentsia. I'm just following what the smart people tell me. And they don't realize, they're being used. Yeah.
And so here's the thing. Again, it's the thing that I keep coming back to, which is, you do have a sizable amount of people nationwide that see through they see through that crap, right?
Yeah.
But winning elections is a whole different matter, just the way, just in terms of how things, are put together or whatever. But in the same way, you cannot have in a denomination, and we saw it in the CRC, you can't have in a denomination people that hold these diverging worldviews. And the secular atheist worldview that they were trying to couch in Jesus that was existing within the elites of the CRC, there has to be a divorce, right?
Yeah.
And we do have a sizable enough part of our country. It's this, so you couldn't do it in a church. We're finding that out. Like, this is the thing. I don't know how we're going to get past this, is that this is their religion. And, a lot of people have gotten caught up in this, and they, just the whole people, you watch that thing happen immediately. People say, well, she was, a mom was murdered for doing nothing or whatever. It's like, well, I don't know if actually, I think it's okay to have a nuanced conversation of deadly force and this, that, the other. Like, we need to have those conversations because, our police officers they're in a tough spot. That being said, boy, we better train them like heck, and we don't want these things to happen, so we can have that sort of conversation. But there's no way that we can even see things in anywhere close to the same way, Jake. There's just no way. Like, it's just such a divergence. And the divorce that had to happen in the CRC, we're living in that as a country right now. And it's just, I don't know what the solution to that is.
Me neither. Pray.
Well,
Pray.
go ahead. Kirk probably.
Yeah, you want to say a quick prayer, Jacob?
This isn't the prayer channel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I very much recommend everyone pray to the gods of their understanding and refer to their religious higher authorities. But yeah, that gets yeah. Right now we're sticking with politics.
Yeah. So, anyway, well, oh, okay. I would just wanted to jump in for my Iran update. As I told you, you're my guy because between you guys having family members there and you kind of know who to watch in the Middle East, who actually might know what's actually happening. It's so crazy. We've gotten to the point now where, um, you know, I just find it very hard to trust any source anymore that they're not.
Yeah.
And I'm even right wing. I don't know right wing, left wing, or moderate. It's like I don't even know who's telling the truth anymore. You know.
And look, there's now that it's as fragmented as it is, there's a lot more likelihood of there being manipulation. You know, because look, if I had a huge audience, people who wanted to manipulate me would be using tactics against me that I have very little
Right.
control over, you know? And I think that basically happens to any large, you know, uh, YouTuber. I think Joe Rogan, there are people who are spending good money trying to influence Joe Rogan in ways that Joe Rogan's probably not aware of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we all do the best we can.
Yep.
Actually, if you just have some discernment and you don't, if you have some discernment and you don't jump to immediate conclusions, right? And you filter through this stuff. It is why I still think I am so grateful that Elon bought Twitter, now X.
Mm.
X, can you easily get sucked into a rage bait machine and can you get easily misled? 100%. There's no doubt about
Especially
it.
with AI. I
Yep.
mean, there's so much AI out there.
But when you know that there are real, like the real people, so
Yeah.
you know there are certain people that are real people, and there's a certain, you follow them enough that you kind of have some trust, and then ultimately you can triangulate, and you know there are people that are actually trying to get to what's really going on. You know, if you just have a little discernment and take a little time, generally you can kind of figure out best you can I think that's real. You know.
Yeah. I think it's really important to keep a track of batting averages. People who say things and then you see what percentage of the time the things they say actually happen versus they don't.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I think I mean I try to keep track of my own batting average, and I would like to say I would like to think that I've been pretty good at uh, you know, saying things that actually prove themselves to be true in the long term. But there's plenty of people who say all kinds of shit that 24 hours later, it's like, oh, well, I never said that. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's it. So when we put this on the Iran thing, right?
Mm.
Oh, attacks are happening now. There's already bombing going, like there's stuff that's already going on. And I'm like, and then there wasn't, right? So it's just, and it's even people that have fairly big followings that what you would think might even be press-like social media sort of people,
Mm.
that you would think are somewhat independently mainstream. And you're like, what are you even talking about? Like, yeah. So I have a huge list of people. Now, you and I have a disagreement
Yeah.
on Mike Cernovich. I actually think he does he tells you exactly what he thinks, and he kind of sees around the corner. He's a guy that's had a pretty good track record with me in terms of tracking things. Like when you say that, in
Um,
terms of
I don't think I've ever really seen him say stuff of value. I can't think what he's said that I've been like, oh, that's insightful.
so.
Yeah. I remember you asked me who is a good source on this
Yes.
stuff, and I mentioned Goldie Gamari.
I'm
Although
following
I
her.
mean she's very obviously a monarchist, and she beats that drum,
Right.
right? They're more Israeli analysts than Iran analysts, but they tend to know what they're talking about. Eli Lake and Chaviv Ratigor, both of them, they're pretty good. I was very impressed with Chaviv Ratigor's latest analysis on Iran.
Okay. And how do you spell the last name?
Chaviv Ratigor. Here, I'll find you his.
Now I've unfollowed Eli. I followed Eli Lake before, and I've unfollowed Eli Lake, and I don't remember why I unfollowed Eli Lake.
He's a pretty rabid Zionist.
Okay.
And he's
This would have been
very
years
much-
ago. This would have been probably about 3 years ago.
Oh, so Chaviv Ratigor. Here, I will put this in the chat.
Oh, okay. So let me ask this question. I've seen this,
Yeah.
and this is on Eli Lake's thing. And then the gal you turned me on to, she was saying this thing before, and I've been seeing this a lot from and Eli's not, or Eli's Lake's not. But a lot of Iranians have talked about, like, if you thought we were anti-Islamic before, wait, you know what I mean? That take there seems to be to not be a good take. But I'm an idiot. So is that seems
Okay,
how can they be anti-Islamic? They can be anti Ayatollah regime Muslims, but aren't they a lot
Okay.
of Iranians Muslim?
So this is the thing, okay? The monarchists and the Shah, one of the reasons the Shah was overthrown was because he was very much along the lines of French secularists. And, you know, Kemal Ataturk in Turkey tried to do the secularist thing in Turkey. The Shah tried to do that in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
There definitely is a streak, and there, especially among the elites in Iran, of almost real hatred of Islam, along the lines of how elites in the United States hate Christianity.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially the leftist elites. And so there are the Marxist factions, there are the anti-religious factions, there are the Zoroastrian, especially among the elites. Goldie Gamari is one of these people who like wants to make Iran Zoroastrian again.
Yeah, I saw that in her feed.
Yeah. And frankly, I think they're delusional. I think the cooler heads, including Reza Pahlavi, recognize Iran is a Muslim country. Iran is going to continue to be a Muslim country. And a majority of Iranians are Muslims. But those Muslim Iranians tend to be politically quietist, like Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani in Iraq. If you want to see what faithful Shia Muslims genuinely believe, look at how Ali Sistani has been acting as a religious leader in Iraq. Okay. And there's definitely a lot of people who mistake or it's their confirmation bias who find quietism. They mistake Muslim quietism with secularity, atheism, even Marxism.
Okay.
And it just I think they're delusional. I just do.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah. But there's definitely people who think, because look, during the protests, there were masajid that were whatchamacallit, that were burnt, right? So some of the protesters set fire to masajids. The plural of masjid is masajid. And they I think that's a huge mistake, because you need a lot of religious Muslims on side anyway. But even if I believed that it was a good idea to burn down masajid, which I don't, I don't think that's real. I think that's a delusion that a lot of especially expats and refugees who themselves hate Islam wish that that's interesting. Adam says that. I think quietism is our version of not wanting responsibility. I don't think. I think certainly for a lot of people it is, but Muslim quietism has a real history, right? There's a reason why the two, like the largest, the most prominent Shia Muslim leader, Ayatollah Sistani, is a quietist, and why the Imam al-Azhar has been as a quietist. The Imam al-Azhar is the closest thing Islam has ever had to a pope. And the Imam al-Azhar has always been a quietist institution and run by quietists. And that is not a foreign imposition. I think Muslim quietism has a much stronger history than most people realize. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I got some nuggets. I got some new people to follow. Yeah, you had mentioned, let's say the regime does fall, and what would you had mentioned that you thought potentially what they would try to potentially reinstall if Rafi ends up coming over there would be something that would look. What does that look like? It doesn't look like Saudi Arabia.
So
because he's such a strong, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It would look nothing like Saudi Arabia.
UAE.
So what Reza Pahlavi, frankly, one of the reasons I have never previously thought the Islamic regime was going anywhere was there were no options.
Right.
It's like when you tell me the Islamic Republic is going to fall, my first question is, and then what? Right. And that's why all of the previous revolts and etc. I never put any stock in. The fact is, people are in fact calling out for Reza Pahlavi, and he is the closest thing to an actual option that exists. And his supposed plan is that he would put in a caretaker government. He would head a caretaker government while there would be elections for the Majlis, meaning actual free elections for people to run for the parliament in Iran. That parliament would suggest a constitution, which there would be a public referendum for, and if that referendum failed, they would get another chance to try to fix it, and then if that second referendum failed, they would dissolve that Majlis and have fresh elections and try again. That's what he thinks he will do. And I think that he imagines that the Constitution would look probably a lot like the types of constitutions that we helped create in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And it would be a constitutional monarchy very much modeled along the lines of the UK in Iran, where he would have basically the legal rights that the British monarch does. And I think he would actually be happy to be that type of figurehead monarch in Iran. I think he would.
Yeah, because I mean, they were talking about trying to have some sort of a new constitution, and have the elections and this, that, and the other.
The problem becomes what happens if it looks like in the elections anything that Pahlavi and his supporters would want has no chance. Are they actually going to follow along this process that they said?
Right.
If it looks like Iran is going to go way more Muslim, if, for example, let's say Hassan Khomeini, who certainly has a large following and could have a plurality, looks like he's going to head this new Majlis, writing the new constitution, and the constitution looks a lot like the present Iranian constitution, except there's a bit more freedom, less control by a guardian council, etc. Right? Will Pahlavi and his supporters abide by that? I don't think any reasonable person can give you an answer to that.
Right. Yeah. So again, that's if it doesn't lead to some sort of a peaceful government or peaceful situation that could lead to the betterment of the Iranian people and playing well with their neighbors where they don't sponsor terrorism, like that's a win.
I think that's where it will go in any case. What might happen is that you might be looking at a country that's much more aligned with the Shiites in Iraq and with the Pakistani government, and there are plenty of people outside, including in Saudi Arabia, who are not going to like that.
So is that going to heat up things in Yemen?
Who knows? I mean, again, the question is what's going to happen, and I don't claim to know what the future will bring. I don't see the current Islamic regime being able to. Frankly, I don't know how they turn the internet on. If they turn the internet back on and the protests don't resume with higher fury than before they turned the internet off, I will be surprised. I don't see how that happens. But they haven't turned the internet back on, and it's been 8 days. How long can you keep a country shut down. The airspace in Iran is shut down. Like, how long are you going to keep that country shut down? And how are they going to come back? I don't see how they do without Pahlavi. Like, Pahlavi, I think is going to come back. The question is, how many people the Islamic regime is going to kill before they leave? And my fear is that death toll is going to look over 6 figures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like you said, the question is, and this is the reason why, Kirk, I am, I wouldn't say I'm a non-interventionist. I'm not an isolationist for the most part. I think that, because the thing is we keep toppling these things and then what comes up in its place, right? But I just think as it comes to Iran and the current longstanding regime, I think the region in the world, I don't know if you can get much worse than what they have.
Oh, you can. It's the Middle East. You can always get worse. This is
You're right. You're right.
This is. I believe Haviv Ratigor, like, that's one of his sayings, or it might have been Eli Lake. He says it, or actually Yoav says this. It's like, it's the Middle East. It can always be worse.
There we go. That's true.
So yeah, no, I definitely think it's possible for things to get worse, but that's not where I see things going. Pahlavi, the Pahlavis have always, like, so Reza Pahlavi, this guy, his grandfather, who was the first Pahlavi king, was installed by the British. He was removed by the British. Muhammad Pahlavi, most people think of the Shah as the Shah, was installed by the British, was reinstalled by the United States. He got too big for his britches. The British and the United States gave up on him. And I don't think the Iranian people are under any delusion that Reza Pahlavi is going to be some independent, but there's a reason why the chant, it is a very common chant, that it is more common than the chant for Pahlavi, which is Naqaze na Lobnan Janam Fadai Iran, which translates to not Gaza, not Lebanon, my life for Iran. And like, I think a lot of Persians are resigned to, hey, let Bibi do whatever Bibi wants and let Trump do whatever Trump wants, and just let us live our own lives.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I mean, yeah, that's what you would hope. Oh, it's curious. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you one more question. Here's this guy. So what are your parents or grandparents, what did they think of Reza Pahlavi?
So, I mean, my grandparents are all passed, but my parents and family generally were happy, as most Jews were, under the Shah. The relationship with the rest of the world was a lot better. The relationship with Israel was good. I think pretty much everyone in Iran thought of him as a kind of puppet of the British and the Americans, and they were fine with that. Like, that's what I think a lot of Americans and Westerners kind of don't recognize, is that Iran has for hundreds of years been under the thumb of either Russia or Great Britain or the Turks, right? They certainly have not, it has not been a great independent power Iran has not been independent at least in the past 1,000 years.
Yeah, I mean, now look at what you were mentioning earlier. Aren't they doing something with Russia intercepting the internet?
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think the vast majority of Iranians have this idea of independence, and I think, frankly, that's part of what the Islamic regime does have. Is the people who want to be independent see the Islamic regime to some degree as being independent, but even those people don't view Islam as native to Iran. You know, I would be happy for Iran not to fall for Russia's treats. Yeah, I certainly would prefer Iran to be closer to the United States than to China and Russia. And right now, it certainly is a lot closer to Russia and China than it is to the United States. And Pahlavi, I mean, he's very much he's signaled clearly he's looking forward to peace with Israel.
Let's send Tim Waltz over to be the president of Iran.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that works for
Well,
me.
I was gonna also ask, do you think the
gotta go,
United
guys.
States by Lance, do you think the United States should sanction Russia over what they're doing with Iran?
I don't know that the United States can sanction Russia more than we've been sanctioning Russia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Yep. Okay. My voice is leaving me, so I think I am going to end this as we usually do. I'm going to use host's prerogative to put the Reverend Parcells to bed because he does need to get up in the morning.
Sorry,
You are
Reverend. Thank
correct.
you.
But before he goes, I have a question. Let's say, God forbid, that I were to burn somebody at the stake for not being a Trinitarian. And I did not repent of that. Is that a salvation issue?
Sometimes Jacob takes
There's a
that devil's
proverb.
advocate thing too
Isn't there
far.
a proverb that says something like "Don't answer a fool according to his folly."
But there's a proverb that says, answer a fool according to his folly.
There is.
Exactly right. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine, which of those was applicable in this situation as I go. So, but anyhow, good.
Thank you, Reverend.
Good to
Thank
chat
you.
with you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
The